Good morning, everybody. This is kind of a weird show. This is kind of a weird episode, in my opinion. And I'll begin this weird episode with a weird way to pander. What a weird thing to do. John Tory tweeting, quote, having a great time at the new at GD Books Church Street location celebrating Mother's Day at the Sunday Drag Brunch. Okay, and fine. I guess that's a fine choice to make if you're a politician. But I think using Mother's Day to pander to groups, any groups, except maybe mothers, would be weird. Is weird to try. It's weird. It's weird. The top response to this in my feed, and it kind of made me laugh because I felt the same way, is staring at these photos for 5 minutes and anything that I honestly feel like saying would get me banned. Yeah, yep. So I'm just going to leave you with, this seems weird to me. This is weird, right? Weird. And here's another weird thing. Now, we're going to look at history in this episode. I'm not going to give you my opinion on this because I don't know. But Michelle Rempel on Mother's Day decided to tweet this thread. So I'm going to look at this. And hard conversations are part and parcel of politics. They need to be had. Absolutely, they need to be had. And they need to be had again and again because the way things happen in politics is really strange. Justin Trudeau snuck changes to the criminal code into the 2018 budget bill, Bill C-74. He snuck those changes in. They weren't debated. They were largely disliked even by the finance committee that was passing them. Bill Morneau shoved it through in the second draft. And Mr. Dan Albus said, hey, hold on a second. I didn't see this portion written there. I've done a video on it earlier. But they snuck that in. And that change wasn't debated, wasn't anything. It was just a rule that was put in there. So it's interesting to look back at the history of how the laws that we currently think have long-standing history are kind of just recent. It's interesting. So here's Michelle Rempel tweeting on Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Quote, all right, it's Mother's Day, so let's do this. Thread below. And this is in response to Martin E. Hoser33 asking Michelle, closer to home, any feedback for at Sam Oosterhoff, who wants to take away a woman's right to choose in Ontario? Hot button issue coming up. This is what he's talking about. In Hamilton, CBC News reporting on May 9th, quote, we pledge to make abortion unthinkable in our time. PC MPP Sam Oosterhoff. So this is what she's responding to. I'm blocked by Michelle Rempel, so thank you for pointing this out. My Twitter person or watcher, thank you. I appreciate it. So Michelle's tweet thread goes like this. 1. I believe women who raise children are heroes who often bear a disproportionate burden of responsibility of doing so. Our society needs to change that. Pro-life has to mean working to make broad changes so that we support a woman through the entire journey of raising a child. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel continues. Number 2. I believe those who choose to have kids should be venerated, not stigmatized. We often don't adequately support or celebrate those who choose to have and raise children and who do so in non-traditional arrangements or give their children up for adoption. This needs to change. Happy Mother's Day from Conservative MP Michelle Rempel. Number 3. I believe we don't adequately support or acknowledge those who provide uncompensated childcare and support for women who have children and do not have the financial luxury of choosing to stay at home with their children. Read extended family. This needs to change. 4. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel says, I believe that men have a shared role in the creation of all pregnancies. Unfortunately, many, but certainly not all, men walk away from the day-to-day financial and social responsibilities of raising a child resulting from an unplanned pregnancy. This needs to change. Hold on a second here, Michelle. I had a quick look at StatsCan. Here's the StatsCan page, and the link is in the description. You can look for yourself. It says lone parent families, and you can see in this graph, in the early years, there were more single mother, lone mother families, right? You can see that line. Here it is. Going up, right? And then lone father families. And it looks like, Michelle, the latest data we've got is that there are more lone father families than there are lone mother families. So that's interesting to note, isn't it? You can break down the numbers even further. How many children under 18, employment status, etc., etc. And it's interesting to look at, right? What they do, even. It's interesting. Business or health or social sciences, etc. It's interesting stuff. But we're talking about 11%, 9%, from 9% in 1976 up to 11%. Hold on, let me find that. Here it is. It says lone parent families accounted for 20% of families with children aged less than 16, up 9% in 1976. So 11% increase. And since then, more single father homes than single mother homes. And Miss Rempel, you're trying to make this about men not stepping up? Really? Because 80% of fathers are stepping up. They're there. And of the 20% of families that are lone parent families, more lone parent families have single fathers than single mothers, based on the latest data. So are you just tweeting what you feel? Is that what your gut tells you? Because it's not what the data says, madam. That's interesting. What's your source? What's your source? Way to shame men on Mother's Day. That's really strange and really interesting. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel. She continues, 5. I believe many women who have children still do not have the equal ability to build networks and advance their careers or interests because of the disproportionate amount of time and cost women bear related to raising a child as compared to men. This needs to change. Number 6, I believe that there are ways of adding significantly greater punishments for those who attack and murder pregnant women while respecting the Dobson Ruling, namely changes to the criminal code for a special category of penalties for doing so. Interesting. I had to find out what the Dobson Ruling was because I didn't know. And that's what led me to reading about more about abortion. Again, this was on Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day from Michelle Rempel. Here's the Dobson Ruling. It says, this is posted May 9th, 2019, so it's relatively new, but it's Yahoo News, and it says, quote, it is possible to seek justice for the death of fetuses without new abortion laws. In 2017, Ariana Golderhen, sorry, I forgot that wrong, was murdered by her violent ex-partner. Her death also came with that of her fetus, which was due less than a month later. Sentenced earlier this month after pleading guilty, her killer will not serve prison time for the murder of the fetus, drawing criticism from the family of the victims, as well as many other Canadians who believe that the death of the fetus should have led to independent charges. In an opinion piece for CBC News, Robin Urbach argued that the situation brings in tension the right to abortion with the desire to see crimes against pregnant persons, predominantly women, punished more heavily. She cites a 1997 Supreme Court judgment in support of her claim that, quote, we can't introduce fetal homicide laws without introducing new restrictions on abortion at the same time. Her argument relies on a misunderstanding of the law. While the 1997 ruling does state that orders protecting fetuses would impinge on the right to abortion, it isn't talking about orders vis-a-vis third parties that may harm both parent and child. So they're saying not like violent murderers. So I wanted to go through the abortion history in Canada because I didn't know, because I was a child in the 80s and the debate, well, it wasn't a debate, it was a Supreme Court decision. But there was sort of a debate in the 1960s and I wasn't born then. So I wanted you to understand what laws are being talked about when they refer to this stuff and what the foundation of the laws are exactly, because it's important to understand. Here it is, and the link is in the description if you want to read it for yourself. In 1969, the government of Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau amended the criminal code allowing doctors to perform abortions in accredited hospitals if a pregnancy threatened the health or life of a woman. A committee of doctors was required to approve the procedure. In all other circumstances, abortion remained illegal. The right of women versus rights of the unborn. Then and today, abortion has remained a divisive moral and political issue, condemned on one side by, quote, pro-life advocates and supported on the other by, quote, pro-choice advocates who consider it a personal issue to be decided by pregnant women, not the state. Through the 1970s and 1980s, both, quote, pro-life groups seeking stricter abortion law and pro-choice groups seeking the legalization of abortion and public funding for it organized large public rallies, including demonstrations on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. I'm going to scroll down a little bit just because this is history that doesn't really matter. The part that matters is here. 1988 Supreme Court decision. In the 1980s, Morgan Taylor, sorry if I've got that wrong, was prosecuted again for providing abortions. In 1988, his case R.V. Morgan Taylor went to the Supreme Court, which evaluated his actions, this time in relation to the 1982 Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The court found that the criminal code provision on abortion violated a woman's right to, quote, life, liberty, and security of the person, guaranteed under Section 7 of the Charter. Wrote Chief Justice Brian Dixon, quote, forcing a woman by threat of criminal sanction to carry a fetus to term unless she meets certain criteria unrelated to her own priorities and aspirations is a profound interference with a woman's body and thus a violation of security of the person. Specifically, the court did not say that there was an inherent right to abortion under the Charter. Rather, it said the system regulating access to abortions, particularly the hospital review committees that were meant to approve abortion requests, had so many barriers and operated so poorly that it was manifestly unfair. As a result, the abortion law was struck down. Although the law technically remains in the criminal code, it is considered unconstitutional and therefore unenforceable. Because no other law has replaced it, abortion has remained legal throughout Canada since 1988. Meanwhile, the fetal rights issue was ultimately decided in the 1989 case, Tremblay versus Daigle, sorry if I've got that wrong, in which the Supreme Court found that only a person had constitutional rights and that such rights began at the time of live birth. The court also decided that the father of a fetus has no proprietary interest in a fetus and may not obtain an injunction to prevent a woman from exercising her right of choice to have an abortion. 1990 House of Commons vote. In the 1990 House of Commons vote in favor, 140 to 131, of a new law introduced by the government of Prime Minister Brian Mulroney aimed at criminalizing abortion once again. The new law would have allowed the procedure only if a doctor determined that a woman's health was threatened by her pregnancy. Under a streamlined review process, however, the bill died in the Senate in January 1991 and never became law. Other Canadian courts also reviewed various attempts by provinces and municipalities to restrict the right of pregnant women to obtain abortions. All such legal attempts failed. Okay, so that's the history of abortion in Canada. I just wanted you to be aware of that because it's interesting, right? So here's the back to the article, the Yahoo article. In Dobson v. Dobson, just like in the 1988 R.V. Morgan-Taylor decision that decriminalized abortion, it is the right to bodily integrity that disposed of the question, not the absence of fetal rights. If fetuses did have rights, those pregnant with them would still have a right to body integrity. The right to bodily integrity lies at the heart of the pro-choice movement and underpins the motto, my body, my choice. How could violence against fetuses be recognized in Canadian law? Although the recognition of fetal personhood would be one such way, it is an unwise one. It sends the wrong message and may spark unnecessary litigation by those who believe that the recognition upends bodily integrity and opens the door to the criminalization of abortion. Personhood is not necessary for there to be a crime. Killing, harming, torturing, and neglecting animals are all crimes, despite animals not being persons. Recreational drug use is victimless, but it is nevertheless criminalized, though it arguably shouldn't be. This leaves ample room for standalone criminalization. So what they're saying here is you don't want to give the fetus personhood, because if you give the fetus personhood or rights, abortion would be very difficult to maintain the legality of. Because if you're killing something that has full personhood and full rights, you're committing murder, right? Which is Ben Shapiro's argument. And so they're saying, but there is a way to say that you can't kill the fetus through violence unless you're a doctor. And then that's okay because it's abortion and the fetus has no rights and is not a person. Again, I'm not weighing in on this at this point in time. Because I haven't made up my mind. I went through the churn of education system that was unquestioningly pro-choice, right? That is Southwestern Ontario, in my opinion, is unquestioningly pro-choice. And so it's a very interesting topic for Michelle Rempel to bring up. And so that's the reason for my lack of a fiery position on this. It's one of those things that not that I thought that it was settled, but I didn't realize the actual history of this, right? What this actually was. This was a Supreme Court choice that basically said, nah, this is how we see things and that's it. And nobody's ever been able to have a debate. Well, Brian Mulroney had the debate in the House of Commons and passed it, but then it died in the Senate. So the House of Commons passed it, it passed the vote, but it died in the Senate. So that's an interesting thing to note as well. So I mean, maybe that's my failing, and I'll accept that as a failing, but I think that Michelle Rempel, citing this case, I think that's very, very tasteless on Mother's Day, and I think that it's a really again, starting this off weird and finishing it off weird. What a weird thing to talk about on Mother's Day. What a weird thing, right? Like, yeah, we should make that criminal, but, respect that other ruling and not open that debate. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel, right? I don't know. I don't know. It's very, very weird. The whole thing is weird. So I'm just going to leave it there because I don't want to comment on it further because I don't know what should happen next. I think that this is all strange. I think that it should be debated. It should be openly debated. Let's have a talk about this. Does personhood begin at live birth? Is a healthy fetus at 34 weeks any different than a healthy fetus 1 minute after birth? I'm a father of 2. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I don't know. And do those fetuses deserve rights? Should that debate happen in the House of Commons? Man, big questions. Happy Mother's Day. Weird, right? Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca. These are big, important issues. It's important. Thanks for watching.